to do that. You have one of those, Jeff? I'd like to keep myself, my eyes balls, you know.
Gary, your blue truck would be right like this with one of those back there.
Well, I see some trucks over here that says Moon Hauling.
We've all seen the videos. You hook a chain to it and drag it. Right up the wall of the store.
Alright. Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved, seconded by Julie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item is the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Is there anybody here from the public that'd like to speak to something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none. Special reports and presentations. You guys you want to give a brief synopsis to the council?
I can do that either before or after the proclamation, whichever.
Um,
for you.
We'll let you do, yeah, we'll let you do it
Okay.
before, and there'll
Okay.
be less talking from me.
Okay. Are you going to read the proclamation into the record?
Do you want me to read the whole thing into the record?
You don't have to. It's up to you. It's fine. Okay. I think I've met most of you before. My name is Maggie Bornholt, and I am with the Willow Domestic Violence Center. My coworker, Adrienne Nunez, is here. She's Associate Director of External Affairs, and she's here for social media purposes. I'm the Rural Douglas County Outreach Coordinator, so I am your advocate for Baldwin City, and I also can do presentations and support groups, so just keep that in mind. The Willow provides shelter support and services to all survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking, and we serve Douglas, Franklin, and Jefferson counties. First, we'd like to thank all of the city council members and the community for your time and attention to this matter. The Willow has served survivors of human trafficking in Northeast Kansas since 2014. This has allowed us to connect with survivors and learn through our services to them. Unfortunately, due to misinformation and sensationalized stories we see in the media, people often believe that human trafficking looks like someone being kidnapped, physically restrained, and involves the use of physical violence. And although those scenarios do occur, the majority of what our clients experience are restraints that are emotionally and psychologically abusive. They have been tricked and had their vulnerabilities exploited, and survivors can be trafficked for sex, labor, or both. Trafficking doesn't always occur in the form of trafficking rings. A trafficker can be anyone, even a friend, family member, or an intimate partner. In 2022, the Willow provided services to 19 survivors of human trafficking, with services ranging from safe shelter to court advocacy and case management. And we are honored to serve these clients and will continue to combat human trafficking through our services and prevention work. The Willow is grateful for the support of local governments as we work closely with law enforcement and other community partners to best prevent trafficking in our community and serve those who have suffered at the hands of abusers. Thank you.
If you want to stay up there, I will come out
Sure.
with you, and I'll read this.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you.
So it's Human Trafficking Awareness Month, Baldwin City. Survivors of human trafficking are among the most vulnerable of individuals. We must work together to address the root cause and create sustainable recovery options for those who have survived these atrocities. Survivor perspectives are essential to solving the root causes, and it is vital to include survivors and to keep those survivor-informed perspectives at the forefront of initiatives. Organizations that are taking the lead on human trafficking initiatives in and near Baldwin City, Kansas, include but are not limited to the following: the Baldwin City Police Department, Lawrence Anti-Trafficking and Education Task Force, the Sexual Trauma and Abuse Care Center, Burt Nash, LMH Health, Lawrence Community Shelter, Baker University, University of Kansas, RADAC, Baldwin City School District number 348, and the Willow Domestic Violence Center. Whereas human trafficking, a modern form of slavery, is one of the largest and fastest growing criminal industries in the world and is based on recruiting, harboring, and transporting people with the purpose of exploitation. whereas sex trafficking and labor trafficking occur in Kansas, and both adults and children of any gender, socioeconomic status, age, race, sexual orientation, or geographic location can become victimized. And whereas human trafficking includes sexual, verbal, emotional, economic, and physical abuse and exploitation, and all forms of abuse carry long-term complex trauma implications. And whereas Kansas human trafficking laws define commercial exploitation of children, which does not require a showing of force, fraud, threat, or coercion, and references the existing statutory definition of human trafficking and aggravated human trafficking. And whereas the effects of human trafficking reach far beyond its victims and perpetrators, causing disruption in our schools, places of work, and neighborhoods. And whereas this city strives to become a place where human trafficking does not exist, where people have their basic needs met, opportunities are available to them, and where all people are treated fully human and worthy of a supportive community and freedom. Now therefore I, Casey Semino, Mayor of Baldwin City, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2023 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and urge the citizens of Baldwin City to speak out against sex and labor trafficking and exploitation, to support survivors of these heinous crimes, to encourage community leaders to hold offenders accountable, and to make preventable efforts a priority by hosting events, by creating policies of work, school, and home, and by supporting and participating in programs designed to reduce and eventually eliminate human trafficking as a societal problem. As a community, we will commit to creating and executing a comprehensive, collaborative, and trauma-informed response for the safety and security of human trafficking survivors. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. We also, I wanted to let you know, we have a new human trafficking coordinator. Her name is Cindy Wallace, and she'll be coming with me to the community.
Thank you.
Does that, Casey, does that pertain to the coyotes too? You know, the guys that lead them across?
Yes. Yes. I mean, they're the runners.
So the ones that we catch up here, we used to catch when I was trooper, you know, and had 15 or 20 in a van, that would be the same thing, right?
It depends. I mean, there's a difference between the immigration side and the sexual exploitation side. But
I don't think it's all sexual. A lot of it's labor.
well, or labor.
It's both.
Yeah. Yeah. But,
That's
but
why
yes,
Sorry.
that law, I believe, covers all
Fix it all.
of that.
You did good, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. Okay, new business. First item, one thing that was omitted from the last council meeting was council president election. So every year we have to elect a new council president. And it is that time of the year. So usually the council members will nominate somebody and vote yes or no.
I nominate Scott Lordson for council president.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1.
You know I can do that.
Now, do we have to call
Happy
you
to
your
serve
honor?
in that capacity. Will the pay increase hit on the next paycheck?
And that's under consideration right now.
Your honor? Is that what we have to call you?
All right, ready? Under new business, council, or I'm sorry, school district deferment. So I'll just kind of present this a little bit. Scott brought this to the finance committee. Thought it was a good idea to, as a lot of us are aware, the school district had some missteps in their property tax mill levy, passing of the budget stuff. So they lost about $660,000 of funding. So Scott came up with this idea, and I thought it was a great idea, that we could possibly defer their electric bill from now until December with a repayment plan over the next 2 years to give them that ability to be able to budget for that loss a little easier for the current school or current calendar year that they're in. So that's why we're bringing it. Scott, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think you all going through the whole SB 13 and figuring out whether it was revenue neutral or mill levy neutral. It's confusing, very confusing. We called ourselves many times. So my understanding is they built the budget based on mill levy neutral, which is what we did, and then inadvertently passed revenue neutral, which means their mill levy will have to go down, they'll have to have the revenue from last year. So, I mean, they're gonna have a gap in figuring out based on what they budgeted. And I think we looked at the numbers and, their utilities, not even half of that. And the way I looked at it was it's similar to the pandemic where there were just unforeseen things that happened and we did the deferment for citizens and businesses. Really what it is just a zero cost loan, right? So we're not losing any revenue. If you looked at the numbers that we have in here from our utility reserve fund, we're actually $200,000 above our 25% target at the end of this last year, 2022. So, it's there. It's not going to cause issues for us in the budget. So, in the essence of partnering with a very important entity in our community, we thought we'd bring it to the council and see what you thought.
About how much money is that? If it's from now to-
It's about 300.
367 last year. So roughly 30,000 a month. So about half of what their deficit is.
How do we recover?
So, starting in the following year, they'll either pick a 12-year or 12-month repayment or a 24-month, and they would pay the normal utility bill and then that extra payment. Just like we did the deferment for the citizens and the businesses in the pandemic.
And how do you pay the extra payment?
So we'll take whatever that amount is for 2023 that's been deferred, we'll divide it by either 12 or 24, however many months they choose to pay it back. We just add that to their bill in 2024.
And it'll be based on actual usage that we're tracking.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna get,
We
they'll
know how
get a
many
bill
kilowatts
every
we're using,
month,
yeah.
but we're just gonna defer them paying.
Right.
How did they misinterpret what they were doing
Jared, I don't know.
when they voted zero? And everybody did it. How did they?
I don't know, wasn't there.
It's not necessarily that everybody did it, we don't know that.
Yeah.
They were just,
Is there, have they been contacted that this is being?
That's a great question.
I did. Yep, I
How
thought
come there's
this,
nobody here?
well, because this isn't a decision on them, this
It's
is.
not an offer until the council agrees. We
Yeah.
can't offer them anything.
Yeah, I told them the council was discussing it, and they'll probably, I imagine some are watching online.
They can't count on it unless we agree as a council to do it. And then they can accept it or reject it.
I think it's.
Now, are we going to need money to build a substation?
Yep.
But that,
That's bonded.
that's bonded, and, I mean, we're talking, Julie, and correct me if I'm wrong. And I skip that on the
That's
agenda.
fine.
I can't hear you.
Back.
That's all right. I wasn't gonna get out of here without.
So we'll go back to old business here shortly. I apologize, that is my misstep. So it's 2 years to even build that out. I mean, you do a construction bond, you have no payments until, multiple years down the
Until
road.
this would be repaid.
I think it's a fair solution to help them. And I think since we're a community service, so to speak, I think that is a good idea. And I'm glad you came up with that.
That's why you're president.
Yeah, Mr. President. I forgot to mention Mr. President.
Yeah, I think in light of our recent meeting with the school
Yeah.
board and, our discussions to
The
have
timing of
a
that
better
was, yeah.
partnership,
Yeah.
this is an excellent example of how we can help each other.
But
I have mixed emotions.
Well, okay, can I share a little information for you? Can you put the cash balances up here on the board?
yeah, we still need
I just asked Ben to provide this here today.
Yep.
And I know it came in here late. So if you go down to where the electric fund is, should be right in the middle, there you go. Okay. Let's give you the money. Cash balance, just look at the electric system from 2 years ago, you're over $5 million. End of 2022, we're $1.7 million. Now you can see the breakdown in there. You're still fine. What Scott's referring to is the cash in the electric reserve and all that. That's fine. Also, you got engines to pay for. It's gonna be another $700,000. You're gonna be around $1 million pretty soon. So you went from 5 to 7 in 3 years. You knock out another 360 out of there, you're well below $1 million. You're about $700-some thousand in cash. What is happening? Why is it dropping? Well, you notice the electric utility cash account is the one that's going down mainly, 1.6 to where, that's because our wholesale power used to be around 4 cents a kilowatt hour. It is now in the 7 to 7.5 cent per kilowatt hour.
What kind of power?
Our wholesale power.
Wholesale.
So what we're paying every month is draining that out. And that's no end in sight to that. I don't know when natural gas or wholesale power is going to turn around. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I know that, because if I did, I'd probably be in some market somewhere making a lot of money. But I can see what's happening to our cash balances. So can you actually do this? Can you float a loan for a couple of years? Yeah, but it's going to have an impact on your cash. But we no longer have $5 million. We don't have $3 million that we used to have in there. It's rapidly dwindling down. So there's a couple of things you can do. I think we're paying cash with the engines. I don't know if you have to do that. I think we made a decision to do that. But there's obviously a way that you're going to pay a little bit of interest on that. But we're going to build a substation, and we're going to pay that through bond issue, which the payments for that won't start until you've already then paid this back, or the school system has actually paid it back. So it really won't impact that. But I think with this involves a little deeper discussion at this point. If we had $5 million still in there, I'm not for or against doing this, but I think there's got to be a way we need to protect our cash balances in our utility, because it's not actually flush with cash right now. Anything under $1 million is going to get into the danger zone for me. I don't know if it is for you, but I know it is for me.
So what's the $4 million that we have in CDs?
Yeah, I asked, Ben's gonna have to explain that a little more than I can right now. Because he actually, we talked briefly this morning about that, and he said that's not part of the electric fund right now. Not sure why. I'm not sure how he thinks about that differently. So, but that's something.
Like he pulled that out.
Yeah, it's separate from this.
And
yeah.
So we really, if we didn't.
Yeah, we need to figure out why that's separate.
Why is that different than the rest of it? I don't know. He'll have to explain that to you. But anyway.
Probably because he forecasted the kickbacks from that out over 5 years, and so he has to have it locked in a separate place.
I think so. I think it's something of that nature, yeah. So that's not something we can actually have
That's
described.
term. What do you?
The kickbacks, it's the interest on it. Yeah, it's the interest on that, yeah. So, yeah, that's sort of the difference there, but, like I said, I just want to kind of pump the brakes on this, necessarily making a decision here tonight. I don't know if we need to, but,
So I guess the point, though, a couple questions. The wholesale utility cost, what percentage, we've been studying the PPAs. Haven't we purposely kept that as large as we do?
yeah, so
Can we shrink that?
I believe you can, yeah. So there's things we can do.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say we're catastrophe zone here, but
And the other point I want to make is, I believe we passed a policy around the target for reserve funds,
right,
15
Yeah.
to 25%.
yeah,
The 15%, if I'm doing my math right, and Ben says that, 6 million annually, 15% is 900K.
mhm,
So, so 700 would be below that, but we're not that far below, and we have $4 million sitting in CDs that I'm not sure what they're for. I believe some of that was generated through the electric utility.
it has to be, yeah, yeah.
So, to me, that's electric utility reserve.
Yeah, so, a lot of that is locked into those CDs, so I'm not sure you can, you can do anything you want with
You
them.
can
Get
cash
But-
certification on that.
You get,
So
yeah,
here's my point.
yeah,
You only need the reserve fund if you have an emergency. you don't have to cash the CDs unless it came to a point where, now we need.
Oh, yeah, correct. You're
So-
correct about that,
So
yeah.
just focusing on that cash balance, I think is not appropriate.
Well, I think as the discussion had been, he would differ with you on that. I mean,
You understand why?
right, and he explained that better than I can.
Okay.
But the point is, we're going the opposite way on this. And I don't know how to turn it around. Like I said, we can do some things to make it not catastrophic, but, we're going the other way on our cash balances is what's happening. Which is not great.
Right, so it's cost or it's rates.
Yeah, and what you're seeing now is that we're, of course, we have to purchase a lot more equipment that's at a lot higher cost because we're going to have more subdivisions coming in and on it goes. So just daily maintenance and purchasing things going forward is going to be a challenge too because all those things are very expensive.
But it's a non-issue if those purchases are 2 years out.
Well, some of them not. I mean, some people are planning on their subdivisions that we've approved here coming forward in the next year. So we have to order these things. They'll take a long time to get here, but we have to order those far in advance. So, like I said, it's very expensive to run the electric system. There's a lot of high cost, labor, materials, whatever it is. So, just as a cautionary tale here, or cautionary note, I don't know if I mean, you can do what you want. I mean, just to make you aware that we don't have as much as you perhaps think in the electric fund right now.
So is it also a fair statement to say that, based on the rate analysis and I guess the cost analysis that we did during the budget process, that everything we have in the electric budget for 2023 should be supported by the rate structure? And what you're saying is that may not be true now?
May not, I don't know, because the long-term trend is that we're paying more for wholesale power, and it really started 2 years ago under the February event, and we saw gas prices just shock everybody. We avoided some of that by running our own engine, but not all of it. So there's still that cost hanging out there. But the market has not gone back down. So our wholesale power has been over 7 cents, really for the past 2 years, have been averaging over that. Before that, we were the low fours. So at 4.2, 4.3 was normal for us. And now, our wholesale power is much higher than that. So that's just, and when does that stop? I don't know. I don't know when, wholesale power is going to go back down. Part of what we're doing with the solar then is, but that's 3 years away, is that you won't have that exposure to natural gas on that side. But we'll still have some because we won't completely get away from that.
But when GRD expires, it'll be a big chunk.
3 years, so that's going to be a trade-off, but then we're going to have to make up the gaps in there for the solar with some other contract, which will probably have natural gas in it. Because that's the one that's most adjustable on a daily
You have
basis.
so many options there, though.
I'm still confused though, and I'm gonna bring the conversation back to this 4 million that's in reserve.
Mhm.
Because our budget is around 15 million, but that's because we have to
Right.
budget our reserve.
Right.
So our actual spend is more like 11 million.
It's great,
We
yeah.
have
for
4
that kind of-
million sitting in CDs, which is
Right.
that budget, $15 million budget.
Right.
That's where I'm getting at is, what we've heard throughout the last 6 to 8 months is our water fund is lower, our general fund's lower, our wastewater fund's lower, and now we're saying our electric fund's lower, but we have 40% of our budget sitting in the bank, in multiple banks. So that's where I'm getting confused, I guess, is where
Okay, you're saying $11 million?
is our actual spend.
That's actually, yeah, yeah.
Do you count $2 million that you make a year from electric companies to make the 14 or 14.5 or 15 million
No,
that you're talking
the
about?
15 million is counting in the cash we have in the bank. So you add that back into our budget, so if you needed to, if a catastrophe hit, you can spend it, because if it's not in your budget, you can't spend it. But our actual spend amount per year is around 11 million.
Granted, the school district's in trouble, and it's due to property taxes, is that correct? That they signed up zero when they should have
Right.
voted,
Correct.
and they come out zero. So what they got was the property taxes from 2 years ago, would that be correct?
Whether
Last,
the revenue from last year, they
just stayed
same.
flat.
Well, the revenue from last year came in
or the property tax
2 years,
revenue
right?
based off that,
It's the assessed values, right?
Okay,
yeah.
so,
That's
yeah.
correct.
so this being a property tax thing, can't they go to the county and the county give them the money that they need? I know that when I was on the township board, if we run out of money, we could go to the county and they would reimburse or give us extra money. Can't the school districts do that?
I think the language in Senate Bill 13 is what
Yeah.
should be doing that.
Well,
I'm not familiar
no,
with
it's
that.
not Senate Bill 13 that keeps you from doing that, it's that they already,
Senate Bill keeps.
Well,
But in Senate Bill 13, they gave them the
13
deadline.
keeps
you have a
going
hearing,
bankrupt.
and then you pass a resolution or ordinance out of that hearing, and then you gotta live with it.
Right, because
That
of
keeps
Senate Bill
them going
13's
back.
but that
deadline.
doesn't keep you from, that doesn't keep an entity from going to the county.
Is that the one that keeps them from going bankrupt?
Is there any,
Scott?
I've never heard of, I mean, I don't know that the county would have any ability to do anything.
No.
No, that's not an
Not for
option.
sure.
The county
It-
does.
It's not an option.
They're
The township, what he's referring to, township is really an entity under the county, a subsidiary of the county. School district and us are not, so they would not have that ability. I know what you're talking about, because the county's heavily involved in funding townships and whatever, so there's a crossover there between the two. So no, once they've set, just like us, once they've set that mill levy, and that's what we always fear is doing exactly what they did,
Yeah.
then you gotta live with it in the next year, and I think that's already been decided by the courts, that you cannot move once you.
But do they not call it district, whatever it is, 254 or whatever the district may be?
That's a state district.
Yeah, it's a state, it's not part of the county.
It's a state funded.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, they're more under the state than under the county. That's the way their system works, just like us. We're a subsidiary of the state, not the county.
Yeah.
So it works a little different. I know what you're talking about there, but no, there's no leeway. Once they pass that, that's it. They gotta live with it.
So last question I have is, that money that was accrued into those CDs, if it goes in from the electric funding, it's gotta come out to that fund as well.
Yeah, that's what we've always done, yeah. I mean, legally, you can do anything you want, you can transfer whatever, but yeah, that's always been our way of operating.
Okay.
So if it's in that fund, then whether it's invested or it's in cash,
Right.
it stays in that
It's
fund.
in that fund.
That's the way it happens. So, anyway, like I said, I didn't want to rain on the parade or anything, but just to kind of give you the cautionary tale here, that, these are dropping no matter what you do as far as this goes
Yeah.
with the 360 or whatever. I think we got to be aware that there are costs that are coming at us that are really eating into our cash
Right.
balance here, no matter what, whether we do this with a school or what, you're still seeing a negative cash flow.
Right, and this is a temporary, this will be returned around in '24, it'll be coming back the other direction.
Right,
And, so it'll be positive impact.
Yes.
And still in my head, the reserve is sitting in there for unplanned expenses. And if you're sitting on, millions in CDs that are assigned to that fund, we're way more healthy in reserve for that utility than anything else.
yeah, I would think so. And again, it was a very brief conversation just to get ready for tonight's, and I went through that with Ben Real, and he just said, I need to caution you to not really count on that as just liquid cash. And he gave me a reason, whatever, and I don't remember all the ins and outs of
When
it.
we did sign up for the CDs, we verified that we could pull them out at any time.
Oh, you can, yeah, and I don't think you really have to.
But-
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not even advocating you.
Some CDs that are expired.
Yeah, and I'm not even advocating you do that, but, just seeing the way the trend's going though, we're gonna be, like I said, under $1 million in cash here, perhaps by the end of the year, which is not a really great place to be for what we know are the expenses coming,
Right.
so.
I can see where Ben's coming from, because the return in interest is.
It's higher now than it's been in a long time, yeah.
It's higher now,
Yeah.
and he's planned it out, and we've made decisions based on the numbers that he's planned out for the next
Correct.
year. So that's the only, but that number is so negligible compared to this that I don't.
So we're not taking that interest and running it back in reserve,
Right.
right? It's just
Right.
growing that
Right.
reserve.
Yeah.
And it's
I
not
don't
doing
That's
think,
the farthest I can
anything.
see it.
yeah, I don't think that's his only reason though, and like I said, he gave it to me, and
We're
I,
collecting around $100,000 off of those.
altogether, yes, right now, that's about it.
Which, my opinion is if it's excess of what our policy is, we should never have taken it from the citizens. They should have kept it, and not us. Even though we're a public entity, I mean, that's a whole different discussion around rates and we need to get into, but, I mean, I'm okay with waiting, you know, I don't know that anything would change my mind, but we probably need to hear our,
I'm hesitant to wait.
I don't know how urgent it is.
Is there a kickback that goes back from the county to the patrons in this
What's that?
district?
Maybe Ben needs
Or in this
to
town?
talk to us and.
About what?
Well, that's what I'd recommend.
Kickback is
Yeah.
going to the patrons in this town, or the customers in this town, taxpayers in this town, because
Throughout the
that
county.
didn't happen? Because
Yeah,
they-
they're
because they
getting-
used
Yeah, your property
email?
taxes are
Yes,
lower.
you gotta probably something in the mail. Because they published the budget one way and then actually it had to revert back to the lower mill
It
levy.
went backwards, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that was.
I don't know, we got a check yet, so,
Well, it'll just be, you just pay lower property taxes this year,
no.
slightly lower, yeah, spread out over a lot of
That'd be nice, because when I first started, that was 1,900, and now it's 2,700.
I don't know.
So anyway,
I would really like to have had Ben's explanation before tonight.
You
Yeah.
know,
It would
Well,
be good to
sorry.
hear from
And-
him.
Well, why didn't
Yeah.
you bring that up in the committee?
He was in the meeting when we talked about this.
Oh, Ben was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
was he?
Yeah, he's on Zoom.
And he had discussed these
We
concerns.
talked about it in depth. That's why I'm surprised that now there's an issue.
What do you remember him saying, Corey?
That there would be no issue.
We pulled up all the numbers and the reserve was there and it was, you know, as you forecasted over the next 2 years and then you have the net gain, right? So you're gonna be getting more on year 2 than you would have normally.
Right.
It just, I mean, it all looked good.
I get the concern, I guess I don't.
I don't know what risk it really puts us at.
I don't either.
That's where I'm at. I mean, it's really putting us at risk for something to happen over the payback period that we couldn't handle. I would say we shouldn't do it. But I don't know what that risk would be.
no, I don't think you're there yet for that. Yeah, I don't, you know, I mean, it's like,
So that's where I'm coming from. It's a
Right.
risk. We have to be good stewards of the, you know, citizens' money and make sure we don't get into a situation where we have an event where, you know, we have to maybe go borrow money where we wouldn't have to if this was out, but I just don't see it with what we have as assets.
Yeah.
In the short time where we start getting it back and then fully be paid back. I mean, it's not like it's a 10-year loan. We're gonna have to fill this hole
Right.
for that period of time, so I'm comfortable with the risk.
I am too.
I'm comfortable with it as well.
If I could rub a crystal ball and see what's coming in the next 2 years, I'd be comfortable with it too, but I'm not.
Okay,
It's fair.
that's fair.
Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? All right. Further council discussion?
None, I'll just say, I hope that Senate Bill 13 has shown a lot more positive than it has of pain. We're already seeing from it.
No, I do think we need to, as part of what Glenn brought up, I think we do need to look at rates. You know, as part of this, you know, bill reformatting, I think we're gonna look at them there and bring back something to the council. But that's more of a break-even, neutral rate change. But I think through all this, we need to look at the cost structure. And my understanding was the wholesale piece, we were actually doing on purpose because it was price cost advantageous for us, unless I misheard. And so now I'm hearing that it's not. And it sounds like that's something we can flex, so why don't we just unflex it and go back to their PPAs if they're lower? So we need to understand all that, but I do think,
Well, the PPAs, so the PPAs are what we what we use first, and then the flexing is the gap to fill in.
I thought we had some leeway around how much of the PPAs we had to use.
I think they're just, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the PPAs are,
See, most of the PPAs have a minimum,
yeah, you buy this amount.
whether we use it or not. And if we buy more than we use, then it's sold back into the market.
So my question is, do they have a maximum?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
so are we at the max?
yes.
on-
I mean, It's one set amount, so the one GRDA.
Could you step up just so that everybody at home could hear you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, GRDA is one of them that, it's 3 megawatts, during the peak times, during the summer times, and then it rolls back to, 2 megawatts per hour, during the off-peak times. So, it's flexible in that, but I can't say it's flexible because you have to take the 3
Right.
during that time period, you have to take the 2 during that time period. If there's any extra, if we're oversubscribed, then we sell it back to the real-time market. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So on the market piece, what's our ability then to shrink that amount? On a
Our wholesale cost?
Yeah, wholesale, sorry.
Well, most of these PPAs are long-term, so, I mean, until one of those changes, then it doesn't.
Okay.
The thing that's driving up the price now is the price of fuel. Natural gas, we're getting hit with a PPA, power purchase,
PCA,
PCA, thank you,
Yeah.
from
So
GRDA,
that's
that's
what's
substantial,
that's what's changed. So
That
the
is what's
rates don't
changed.
change, it's that
yes,
power charge adjustment.
yes,
Okay.
which is based on fuel costs, which is mostly natural
Right.
gas.
And that's the only PPA we have that has that in it, right?
Do you?
I don't think there's any others that have a,
I think that's
PCA.
the only one we have.
Okay, but that's why the cost would change in the middle of a contract, right?
How many dollars are you referring to? 600?
No,
No,
360.
360.
Okay, what activities doesn't get used at the school if they don't get 360?
Don't know.
It's mainly deferred maintenance, if I understand it
I'm not gonna make judgment on what's valuable and what's not valuable for the school board.
I just know it's gonna impact the children in our community, and that's,
And the
Oh, I
reality
didn't know.
is, they could very well pay us back in August or in December. You know, we might not have any loss, it just may help them buy some time to figure out what they need to do in that budget. So we don't know, I don't know their budget. I don't know when they can't repay.
I know it's 360 grand, and whatever you cut somewhere, you gotta take from somewhere else. And
Sure.
that means there ain't gonna be no teachers hired, or whatever else, anything that costs $360,000 you won't get, because they forecast it in their budget. So it's not, doesn't really matter where it specifically comes from. That's for them to decide.
Yeah. So what do we need on this to make a decision?
Motion.
For a resolution, a policy,
Be a motion to allow for a deferment to the school district for a period through December of 2023 with a repayment of 2 years after, up to it.
up to you.
And they can take it or leave it.
And
Yeah.
They can take it or leave
It's
it.
an
Don't have
offer.
to accept it.
I don't know whether they can take it.
right. I'm gonna make a motion. I move to defer the school district's electric utility payment for 1 year, starting in 2023 and ending in 2024. Or do we want it, are we doing 1 year or 2 years? What did we decide?
well,
It's either or.
Up to.
Up to, yeah, there you
So
go.
defer 1 year with a repayment of up to 2 years.
Okay, so, for 1 year for up to 2 years, okay.
So you went 1 year? You go 1 year or 2?
You're deferring 1 year with the payback being either 1 or 2, over the, it's
So
through,
it's 2 years,
or 1,
Up to 2
or
years.
3 months.
up to.
Whatever they
Up to,
decide.
yeah.
Up to 2
Max-
years.
No, there's
maximum-
no early
maximum-
payment penalty.
Maximum 2 years.
Right.
Correct. You get that? All right.
Sorry.
You can listen to the tape after.
Restate it again real quick for her. Susan, just restate it for her.
Okay. I move to defer the school district's electric utility payment for 1 year, starting in 2023 and ending up to 2 years from now, 2025.
So defer for 2023 with payback through
Right.
2024.
2025.
2025.
Yeah.
Forgot it's 3.
So
It's hard to
defer,
word that.
I've written 2022
so
all
defer
month.
for 1 year, and Susan,
Yes.
correct me on your motion if this is wrong. Defer for 1 year, pay back 2 years after the deferment's over,
Right,
up to.
up to 2
Up to
years.
2.
Now, is the schools aware of this? Is this correct?
Yep.
And do they, and they agree?
They,
We don't know.
We don't know.
They've gotta go.
We haven't offered
Well,
yet.
then how
They gotta
can
go to
we,
their
how can we
board.
make a motion and do this?
It's an offer,
Because
Jerry.
it's
We're making a motion to make an offer.
we
That's
can't
it.
offer it to them.
I
unless
can't,
we
I don't
have
have
it.
the authority to go offer something like this to them, and then they
Yeah.
vote on it at their meeting and accept it, and then I come back and say, oh, sorry,
Right.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
council disagreed. I don't have that authority, that has to come from you guys.
Continue on.
Is there a second?
Second?
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Right.
Motion passes 4-1. Next, we'll go back to old business. My apologies, Julie.
That's okay.
Substation. Julie, if you wanna, I guess, kick this off and kind of.
Well, I asked Jeff to come and present this to you guys on the latest update of price and how that's gonna work. So, let Jeff go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Pat and I are here today to talk about the substation project that I know we've talked about several times, but we have a little more information to present to you. So I'll start off with just some of the high points of the project, and then maybe towards the end, if you guys have any questions, Pat and I can answer them for you. 2020, we sent out an RFP for substation transmission generation study. I think you guys all have received a copy of it. It was done and submitted to us in July of 2021. The study verified the need to expand generation and also construct the second substation. In this study, Lutz has an estimate for several different options on the substation, but we kind of narrowed it down to one type of a substation, and we've kind of narrowed down the proposed site to the area at First and 56 Highway, the old motel property. So Lutz estimates were updated in July of 2022 to reflect the supply chain issues and high inflation on the utility components that would be required. So that information that I included in the packet on the right side of the paper is Lutz's estimate, and that is from July of 2022. So, I have to think that the inflation on that has slowed down a little bit, but again, those are older prices. So after that point, the city staff wanted to involve Mid-States Engineering Group that was recently acquired by Kansas Municipal Energy Agency. And so we reached out to that group, and so they came up with some different ideas on the type of substation, and then they also came up with their own estimate for the project, and that's on the left side. So one of the things they wanted to notate was the biggest item, the transformer, is also the most volatile in pricing right now, and also the longest, one of the longest items that it'll take to take delivery on once it's ordered. So benefits of the second substation. So the existing substation and transformer were installed in 1999, so we're looking at 24 years old. That they've been taken really good taken care of, but they all have a life to them, and we're getting into the life on that one. As you all know, we're also getting close to what that transformer was built to handle. So the new substation transformer is spec'd out at 20 MVA, where our existing Newton transformer is only 10 MVA. So basically, the 10 MVA transformer during our peak times are getting 80-90% loaded. In the future, if we have more load, then we would have to bring on generation to cut back that tie and to remove load from the transformer. So with the second substation, that would alleviate, any capacity problems we have with the old transformer at Newton, because that gives us another 20 MVA. It also would allow all the existing circuits to be fed from either facility or from both. So if we want to take all of our feeders and cut the load in half, we can do that. We can run half of each feeder's load on each substation. Another thing that it allows us to do is it allows us to take either substation offline for maintenance or repairs. Say we have some of the issues like we've had in the past where it took a while to determine what was wrong with the substation when we had faults or when we had a failure. It wouldn't matter. We could move all the load to the one that didn't have problems. So it would make it a lot easier for city staff and contractors to work on, repair, maintain. As designed, both subs, if built as we're talking about, each sub would have an additional unused circuit for future expansion or for to replace another circuit that maybe failed. Here, a year or so ago, we lost one of the circuits at our substation, and we had to double up 2 feeds onto 1 circuit. If we had this extra one, we could possibly move load over onto it and then fix it at our convenience. Another thing that would improve would be speed to restore the service to residents during an equipment failure at either substation. It would allow us to just immediately move load and then start looking at what our problem was. So right now, as we have problems at the substation, we have to figure out what the problem is. Sometimes that means outages that last longer. Another positive of this is we would include updating the electric utilities complete SCADA system if we went with this second substation. That would eliminate outdated mechanical relays and obsolete components that were installed in the 90s. A lot of that is computer, any 25-year-old computer is obviously obsolete. A lot of that stuff runs on mechanical relays, and any new SCADA system we would install, which would be required if we had a substation, would all be solid state stuff. It wouldn't be mechanical relays. So I talked about the location. We've been basing everything on the old motel property. That property makes the most sense when we're discussing the distribution and transmission paths that need to be taken to it. I have a couple on that map that I included. I have a couple options. The first one being on the east end of the property that the city owns. We could place that substation there. And then the second option was the trailer. On the left there would be the trailer court property. We don't currently own that property, but it's my understanding that it could possibly be for sale. See some advantages to that, the trailer park property, because it moves it off the site of 56 Highway. I think that some of you guys' desires early on was to not have it be an eyesore or something to people coming in the city. So I think either place would work. But another advantage I see to the trailer park property is that if we got that moved over to the west, that opens up the remaining land for possible commercial development, in the future. It would make that piece of property bigger, possibly be an easier way to sell that property. Let's see here. I also included a picture of a possibility on fencing. I don't know where exactly this is, but there is precast concrete fencing. I visited the battery facility in Wichita, and then also one of the substations that we were at in Orlando had this type of fencing, and you couldn't tell what was behind it. It didn't appear that it was a substation. I mean, very aesthetic, pleasing aesthetic. So that can be incorporated into that project, whether we put it on, the back half or the front half.
How tall are those panels?
It can be whatever you want,
Whatever you
but
want.
you were probably looking at probably 8 foot to cover,
Right.
the majority of what's behind it.
Good power washer.
I'm sorry?
You got a good power washer.
Yeah,
I can see some
we
towns.
probably have to do that,
Yeah.
yeah.
They build a house, it's like a fake house.
Yep.
They
I mean, there's all kinds of options we can do to, you know, to make it look better than a chain link fence.
Sure.
And so, if we go back to the bids on that, both bids included the chain link fence, but, towards the bottom, I put in a city estimate of an upgrade to the fence. Because I think, from what I understood, that your guys' desire is to not maybe have this one, with a chain link fence around it. So that was included under the city estimates. So differences in the project, differences in the bids. The Mid-States did include a SCADA system. The Lutz did not. They had that bid at $150,000, so there's a little difference there. The Lutz estimation had site work prep where the Mid-States doesn't. So I can't come up with a dollar amount for that. I wasn't sure what that is, but I also wanted to tell you a little bit about Mid-States and how it differs from a private contractor. So Mid-States is owned by KMEA now, which is in turn owned by the 84 member cities that are involved in it, Baldwin City being one of them. So Mid-States was started over 60 years ago by a family. That family's still involved in it. They remained on with the company when KMEA acquired them. They don't do formal bidding. So they do what cost plus % on what they do. So they have a set labor price, which I included in there, and then the components would be cost plus 10%. Any subcontractors would be cost plus 10%. So basically what that does is keep the price of the project down. Another Mid-States are currently leading our install on the Hughes generation that we just purchased at Plant 2, so they're already involved with the city. And member representatives on the executive council approve all of Mid-States rates, and Rob Coley currently sits on the board of that committee. So we have someone within the city who actually sits on that board. I guess what we're asking from you is, you know, if you're wanting to move forward with this, would you consider doing the Mid-States program and not going out for a formal bid? Because we think it would be a better option and a cheaper option. And then the way the Mid-States would work is, I guess, that it could be approved as a price cap, and then if we were to get closer to exceed that price cap, it would take coming back to the council to approve the extra expenditures on it. A lot of information. Any questions?
Got two.
Anything I didn't explain?
I got two questions.
Okay.
Is Microcom making the SCADA?
No, this would be something that Mid-States would develop. And
Are you gonna have a prefab building?
no. What Mid-States would like to do is put it in a larger building than what our substation is now. They would like the whole area to be in an enclosed environment, so therefore any work that's done on it could be done in rain. It also is a safer area. So what they would like to do is center the breakers inside of a larger building and have complete work around of
Are
it.
you gonna
So
make a stick building, or are we gonna make a stick
I believe it'd be a metal clad.
metal building? By using Mid-States without putting this out for bid, can we get in trouble for that? Because it's a municipality?
No, we don't have any. Glenn, there's no state laws that require us to go out for bid.
Let me check into that before we make that decision. I mean, this is one of these things that could be considered a specialty. I mean, they're part of a joint action agency that we're part of, so we're actually part owner of this company, is what Jeff was trying to explain.
Yeah.
You know, because they're under KME, we're a member of, so they're membership owned. They're part of the organization, so I think that is the reasoning behind why they don't bid things out to their own members, which would be kind of odd for them to do. So, you know, I don't know. Let me check and see if there's any legal requirements there to bid something like this or not. I'm not sure where this falls.
The explanation I got from Mike Smotter yesterday on the bid process was being member-owned, if they were to give a formal bid that had to be adhered to, then they could potentially lead to costs to the other cities that weren't involved in the project because they were owned by the other cities. So that's why they do not bid that way. So.
Yeah, could they provide, I mean, it'd be nice to know how accurate their estimates are. Do they have recent references to say we estimated X and it came out as Y? Because the only risk here is it's open-ended.
I agree.
Unless you pass it up to that.
Well, so then you're stuck with 3/4 of a substation, what are you gonna do? You gotta go, well, I
Are
mean,
these figures on 21 or?
Yeah,
19?
Contingency definitely doesn't seem very much for 2.8.
well, I mean, if they're within, if they've been accurate.
So they've been building these all across the state.
Right,
So
you gotta
they're
have data.
huge on municipal substations. They've built several. They're involved in a bunch of generation projects right now. I know of 2 other cities that are
Right.
ready to put the rubber stamp on the substation also. So this is something they do literally all year long. So I feel that they're fairly correct on their bidding. There probably is.
References, I mean, we haven't heard anybody screaming that they got stuck, they budgeted for X and it went over 25%, they didn't have budget for it, but I just asked a question. How do
No,
they-
I think it's a valid question.
How do they, alleviate the risk, the fear of this? If they've been accurate for the past 10, that's a good feeling to have. That, one, they know what they're doing, they've looked at this, they gotta look at this enough to be able to even give us an estimate. I think
Well, another way of looking at it is that if you look to the right on this spreadsheet, we have the Lutz estimate on there, which is around 4, but it's almost exactly the same. I mean, as far as their, or my.
I thought they were $1 million more.
Yeah, they are.
They're 5.1.
They're 4, and what is,
There you gotta scroll over.
okay.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
they're not including distribution and transmission on that $4 million project.
Okay.
Where on the left side, the whole project is $4 million.
Okay, so
roughly.
that's including their tie line and.
Yes.
I think this one's
Distribution,
about
all
$2
that.
million less than what.
Okay, all right, I was reading that wrong then.
Which is great, but is it too good to be true?
Yeah. but
So
that's a lot less.
is your concern that going out for bid might offer you some kind of protection from any?
I think on those bids though, yeah, they've got to, I mean, don't we have protection against, going over a bid by a certain 10% or whatever that number is? And the bid has to be somewhat binding.
Can you incorporate that language into this if you
I
want to?
don't think so.
Okay, so that's your risk.
That is a risk, and if they've done the last 10 and they've been within 5%,
Sure.
There is a plus and minus in most contracts like this in construction, but I don't know what it is anymore.
So
But
that they
it's
have-
somewhere around,
well, firm fixed price bid, they've got to come in within, I don't know, whatever the contract
There's
says,
a
it's plus
percentage.
10%, but that's what the risk is of firm fixed price, is you bid it, and then your materials, your labor went up, and you've got to eat it, because you can't go back and change your price.
that's why I asked when this was made, if this was made in 19 or 21, or when these bids were made.
Well, this estimate was.
This is recent. This is within the last month.
The other one's July 22.
Yeah. Mid-States was 18 months ago,
Yes.
and this one was recent. I'm sorry.
No, Mid-States was recent and Lutz
Lutz
was 9 months ago or,
But we'd still have a contract, right, with bid states?
yes.
So then we could stipulate some of those in that contract.
That's what I was asking. And
That would still have to be approved.
Not if they're cost plus.
Well, no, not if they're
Yeah.
cost plus.
There's 2 things I failed to mention. The first one being, the large items like the transformer and the switchgear, they will go out for bids on. If they're not fabricating it and it's a large ticket item, they go out for bids for it.
Right.
So that they will take the best option there too. There's another thing I was gonna say, but it just slipped my mind.
Right, so the reality is it's probably gonna be more than what they're saying, because you get the firm fixed price, they've gotta cover themselves from any of these. They haven't even gone out for bids for this stuff, right? And if it's higher than they think, then they're just passing it along to us. Firm fixed price, they've gotta eat it within the scope of the contract, so.
right.
But that's why they make a lot more money. If they estimate it correctly, then they keep all that extra margin.
Right. I think something else that's important to say too is that Lutz's bid is from July 22, and if inflation is a driving factor here and why the other one's lower, I would like to know what Lutz's new number is.
I could ask that. I
You
could
were
get that.
going.
Yep.
No, there's-
The second thing I was gonna say was that I asked Mike if Mike is Mid-States, whether he thought that any company would give, set, estimate, or not estimate, a set bid, knowing the volatility of the components. And he said, I would really be surprised if you could find someone that would stand behind their bid.
They would, but the price is gonna be
Yeah.
so high that they're gonna cover that risk, right? So, I think it makes sense if we can just get some idea of, you ask for a let's refresh, and then if they've got references on how close they've been to their last 5, or whatever, last 1 estimates, and then I think Glenn's gonna find out if we have to, we can do this without going out for bid. I think that's the 3 things we,
And wasn't Lutz, built differently? than
Yes.
this is?
So Lutz was based on a skid mount substation. Mike's, Mid-States' opinion on was that is that limits you if you ever have a transformer failure. Because it would be, you would have to replace it with that very same transformer, because it's not a generic, the one that Mid-States is talking about. Maybe you can help me out on this, Pat, but any transformer could be set in there, and connected, where the skid mounted ones are a more unit, and it would have to be the exact same transformer.
Because they built
Yeah,
it
the skid
there and
mount
bring
is
it
made
in.
for that unit specifically.
yep,
Yeah,
And the others, we could go out
yep.
and just buy them, Eaton, or you pick up one
Yeah.
down here on the road somewhere, yeah, but
So the advantage of skid mount is they can assemble it and bring it in here, and then it's ready to go.
Yeah.
The disadvantage is what we just talked about. So
Yeah.
Mike's thought on it was that you wouldn't want to do the skid mount project because of that reason.
So a big assumption with everyone's numbers is that this is our location, right?
Well,
Correct.
that's the next thing that we're gonna go to see what the council's thoughts and opinions were on that. But I almost want a couple more clarity on this before we move to the location. Thing is, so what's their time frame once the council decides
18 months to 24 months
to have it built?
to have it built and online is what he,
Okay.
but the longer we wait, the more projects that'll get ahead of them too, because I know there's a bunch of them out there.
Absolutely. And then the other question I have then is, are they gonna present the council with a contract? Because we would almost want to view and have that contract reviewed before the council would approve it.
So what they did on the generation project was a master service agreement. And I can get you a copy of that, and I don't know if this master service agreement would be any different than that one, or,
So
That's
we
something
want
I can
to know
check in
what
on.
type of agreement that they're wanting to enter into as well, just on something this large, I think.
and the other thing is, we could probably get him to come at a meeting too.
I think that'd probably be good, to have them at the next meeting, if that's what the council would like, to just get those, that gives you 2 weeks to get the questions answered from the council, and then get him here, so that way
Okay,
we can see everything. That also gives Glenn and Dakota time to review see if there's any state laws that prohibit us from having to go. But yeah, to the location is the other thing we need to decide on what the council would like to do.
I think if the location is any different from that corner, or that triangle, then it would probably skew the numbers again, because the transmission distribution would change,
Right.
so.
And we've had a lot of conversation around different locations. I think that's kind of the one we've had our eye on. And,
and we wouldn't have to pay any more money out for
the only variable is those homes right there, and that, if that were to become available, would we move on that? And if so, Jeff, to your point, how do those boundaries change for that corner property, the old motel property?
Well, that is available.
Well, what's the footprint of the substation then? How about, as far as this map goes, are we talking a half this map of that lot that's for sale?
The
footprint.
are you on the map with the red squares?
Yeah, no, this one here, where the mobile homes are?
Yeah, is that
He had-
red one not in there?
Yeah.
That one.
Oh,
That-
okay, that's better.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, even better. Okay, so yeah, it takes up about half of it, it looks like, a little less.
Yeah, it almost seems to me more logical to have that other property as well.
It does. You know, you think down the road, I mean, as we build out of the city limits further from downtown, does it make sense to have the fire department downtown? You start thinking about locations if that would ever move. I don't know. You just gotta think long term on these things.
I guess my thought on it is if you did that and you went to sell the other piece of property, you could maybe recover the cost that you spent on that,
Sure.
you know? And maybe it makes it more sellable.
It's my only concern, I think we talked about it, is I just really hesitate being responsible for displacing those mobile homes. You know, if it were up for sale, it has been, and they've been trying to sell it, you know,
Right.
that's one thing, I'm not sure that's the case.
Well, we've talked to her for a couple of years, that's pre-pandemic, she wanted to sell it to us.
That's different than wanting to sell it to anybody.
Oh, and they were very close to selling it to a private company, and that fell through. Yeah.
It's still a concern.
But that's something we can discuss in
Yeah, hey, just let's discuss it.
session.
Yeah.
Because it's purchase of property.
No, I understand. I just wanted to voice my concern, and I don't know if there was a alternative to that,
I mean,
because it does make sense that that's probably the better location, but there's downside to it.
sure.
Is all I'm trying to say.
This goes all back to that housing conversation.
Yep. So I think we're okay, it's one of those two, it's gonna be in that location, either or.
In that vicinity.
So, how much?
I
Oh,
would-
go ahead.
I was just saying, my personal opinion would be, yeah, in that general location without making a decision. Yeah. Would be,
It definitely fits in the motel lot.
yeah, we could.
Yeah, so
we could, but
Yeah, yeah.
And it maybe could be configured to be longer and skinnier if, say, you wanted to run it parallel with the highway or something. There's probably some options that we could do to change the actual footprint of it a little bit.
Julie, would you?
What, I know you can't give me an exact number, but how much more would it be to go to this, with the transmission and stuff, to this location compared to the motel?
Well, either facility, either on
About the
that
same?
property is gonna be
They're
the
close
same,
enough.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, well, I didn't know.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's based on like just sheer distance, right?
Right.
What you're running it from point A to point B.
Right.
So it'd be just the difference between buying a different property
Right.
or using the one that we have.
Correct.
Great.
So, and I think the last time we heard what she wanted for it was like 200,000. Is that correct?
I heard that.
I don't know, I think, Glenn, would this be something we'd wanna go into executive session to discuss?
Acquiring the property, yes, I wouldn't go any further.
So, yeah, we probably wanna discuss all that if that is something the council wanted to discuss.
Okay, I see, okay.
And, by the way, we can do that anytime.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be on the agenda. If you make a motion, go ahead. But if you'd like to discuss that tonight.
And that decision certainly isn't the first decision needs to be made.
No, as long as
'Cause we have-
generally.
Well, if we
That's-
decide
we
it's
know
gonna be
it
one of
fits.
those two. it's
We know
gonna-
it fits on the one we already got.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So is the council good with this being the general location so that they know
Yeah.
the,
Yeah, do we need a motion or anything, or we just kind
I don't-
of voice our temperature?
I think if we stay generally,
Joseph agrees.
I think we're good right now, until we go
We
to
do all agree on that, correct?
do what?
We all do agree on that, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Does anybody disagree on this being the general location? Okay,
Nobody opposes.
nobody opposes that. So,
As you were, continue on.
Let me see if I can get answers to your guys' questions, and I'll
And we
see if I
can-
can get Mike.
we'll just move this, if Julie, if you guys are okay with it, we'll just move it to the next meeting,
Yeah, and then we'll have more answers to,
and then hopefully they can be here.
and they can be,
Okay,
that'd be great.
All right.
Thanks.
thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next item, council committee reports, budget and finance, Scott.
Yeah, we met on the 13th and discussed everything that we've discussed tonight, all the topics we already covered, so I don't need to rehash that. I can't be here Friday for the next regular scheduled one, so I'm gonna propose the 3rd of February, the following Friday.
Is that after our next council meeting?
No, it's before.
Do you have something you want to discuss before the next?
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to continue the utility bill
Okay.
format, and the rate discussion. I think we have, and then we certainly have some discussion out of this meeting around reserve funds to make sure we.
Well, and the only reason I asked is just to get us back into the regular schedule.
Oh, we could have one right after that, too.
Yeah, we'd have
If
back.
we need it, yeah.
Okay,
I'd like to go on the 3rd
okay.
for that at
Scheduled for
7:45
Valentine's Day.
What do we forego the
AM,
10th?
7:04 City Hall.
No,
Keep the 10th.
Keep the
on there.
10th.
Okay, got it.
in
Stay in
addition to-
rhythm.
I'll
Yeah.
expect chocolates.
Okay.
Oh,
Good. Community development, Corey?
Yeah, we met yesterday. Had a couple discussion items. One, we had an update on the community center. We were kind of expecting that would have already gone out for RFP, and we would have had some numbers by February 2nd was the first date I think we were told, but we got some delays on there. I know that the plans are out there and that contractors can start requesting those and taking a look and starting to maybe start making their bids. The new date for when we should hear back on that is the 23rd of February by 2 o'clock. All bids should be in for the community center. And so I think that one's pretty etched in. I don't think there's any ambiguity around that. So we should hear by the 23rd of February and get to see all the bids and make some decisions on that. Discussed keeping, it was a couple CDC meetings ago, we had talked about getting letters of support for the trail heading south to Ottawa. Just kind of keeping that conversation going, elected officials, etc. And just keeping that one on the agenda for a little bit until we can start getting some letters of support in for that one as we go out for these grants. Two of which we're still in play for. The Spark grant, correct me if I'm wrong, we're
Right, I've not heard. That's
have not heard
very-
back on that one yet, but the part 2 of the RAISE grant.
Is what we're going.
Is
The
what we're-
application process will run now.
Right. So they, the first one we missed out on, this is the second wave of funding, we're hoping to maybe have a better chance at. Had some conversations around a potential historical district for downtown buildings. There's a couple private citizens leading the way on that. We just brought it to CDC to have some more discussion around how that might impact and how we might like to see. I think we have the final say on what those districts are, where those boundaries are drawn, et cetera. Just more clarification on what a historical district means and opens you up to. As far as I can tell, or maybe it doesn't seem like there are any downsides, maybe with the exception of there is a threshold for how many historical buildings you have to have in your district and how new construction can maybe impact that. And it just depends on how you draw your boundaries and where you see new construction coming up, et cetera. But it's still very early on in that.
And there is a meeting
That's-
on that this Saturday.
And that's right.
At
That's
the
was
library.
my next point.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. That's it. We meet again on the 27th of February, 4 o'clock, second floor of City Hall.
Public safety, Susan.
We have not met since the last city council meeting, and we're scheduled to meet again on February 14th on Valentine's Day. And Jerry's
She
already,
wants chocolates.
he's already decided
I've
he's
already
gonna
been
bring me
advised.
chocolates.
To bring chocolate.
Are you making it? Making the chocolate or buying?
No, but I got a contact.
In the chocolate industry?
Yes.
Is it Russell Stover?
No.
Is it Tom Shane? Now you have a friend in the chocolate
It's the
business?
guy by the name of David Smith.
Oh,
No relation.
okay, well, I hope Dave
Yeah.
makes good chocolate.
What is it? Dillon, Colorado.
There you go. Sure,
Imported chocolate.
sure.
I'm not gonna trust
Across
the
state
chocolates
lines,
in
I
Colorado.
We're going on some great territory.
Yeah.
All right, public works and utilities,
You
Jim.
want one with that or not?
We met and we basically talked about everything that Jeff just told you. So, our next meeting is February 9th at 9 o'clock.
Strategic planning, Scott.
We have not met since the last council meeting. I'm suggesting our next one be on February 3rd, Julie, at like 2 PM,
Okay. That's fine.
second floor of City Hall.
Glenn, anything from you guys?
Nothing we haven't covered.
All right.
We have our next council meeting on this, on 21st.
No, next council meeting is February 7th,
And the one after that.
February 21st. I have nothing more. If
I have
nobody
a
else-
question before you get out of it.
Huh?
I have a question.
Okay.
This voting that you've done on this proposal to the school, this will have to come back to the council, I presume, to vote for whether we give them the money or not.
No.
No.
No, we just did it.
They're making an offer to buy on property. We're making an offer. If they accept it, we've agreed to do it.
So it's like, what now? What to buy?
So, like, if we were
Oh,
gonna
you're
acquire some
purchasing
property,
property. I
we
see.
would authorize them to go make the offer.
Right.
And if they accept it, we're done.
Okay, so it doesn't come back to the council.
Anything else?
Do we have a February work session?
We have not set one yet. I was gonna kind of wait to see how strategic plan committee went
Okay,
and see if
That's
we
what
needed
led me
one-
there, so, okay,
One after that.
cool.
There's nothing else?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved to second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.